You might know Bryan Johnson from his viral social media or from the Netflix documentary that just came out on January 1st, aptly named Don't Die. You might also think he's a rich, creepy weirdo with a ridiculous dream to live forever and an obsession with his own boners. And you wouldn't be wrong. But consider this. Pythagoras developed his own religion with weird tenets like do not under any circumstances eat beans. Nikola Tesla was a germaphobe with OCD and an obsession with the number 3. Ben Franklin loved to have with really, really old women, like really old. And Michelangelo would sometimes go so long without taking off his boots that when he would, a bunch of skin would come off with it. Point is, you gotta be a little bit nuts to dedicate your life to a pursuit that the whole world thinks is crazy. And that's exactly what Bryan Johnson is doing. Lucky for you, I'm here to bridge the gap. Just a normal guy doing my best to adopt as many of his longevity protocols as I can without losing my job or my fiance. Starting with the most impactful and the most accessible, daily habits. Since good consistent sleep is by far the most important habit, we'll start there. To paraphrase my boy BJ, high quality sleep makes hard things easy and impossible things possible. Getting a good night's sleep comes down to a lot of different factors, but a few that I found most compelling are eating your last meal a little bit earlier in the day. You can experiment with this, but probably the earlier the better. Having a wind down routine of 30 to 60 minutes at night that preps your body for sleep. Stay off of screens and away from blue lights that'll disrupt what your body's trying to get in place to get you ready for a good night's sleep. Don't have stimulants like caffeine too late in the day. Caffeine has a half-life of 6 hours, so if you have a cup of coffee at 4 p.m., it's like having half a cup of coffee at 10 p.m. Go to bed in a cool temperature room, ideally somewhere between like 60 and 70 degrees. Go to bed with 7 to 9 hours available and try to wake up without using an alarm if possible. Once you're up, you want to get light exposure as early as possible. So for Bryan, he uses some fancy, expensive machines since he's up before the sun. For me, I'm just going to try to open up windows or get outside to walk the dog or do something else to get some light into my eyes as early as possible. For me, that means waking up 0 to 1 hours before the sunrise, starts getting light before the sunrise actually hits. So I find that's a good way to do it for me. I'm still fine-tuning my morning routine, and I expect I will be for some time, but it does consist of a lineup of supplements that now comes in for me at about 330 calories without actually eating any real food. And that's before having a protein shake or anything else. The greens, collagen, creatine, vitamin C, a bit of a daily vitamin, and I like these little turmeric chews that have garlic and some other good stuff in them as well. Alpha lipoic acid for nerve health, specifically for me because I've had a bunch of nerve issues recently. I've also been using Bryan's longevity mix, or what I like to call pink drink, which has some creatine and ashwagandha and some vitamin C and other stuff in there as well. Since I'm a remote worker, I like to know what's coming up in my day next. So early on, I try to check my calendar for work, maybe my emails, see if there's anything high importance that's come in that would require me to get a jump start on the day. Then I have my first workout of the day. I'll typically have 2. This first one focuses on spinal health, mobility, flexibility, and maybe some balance. I'd encourage you to tailor it to your own specific needs. I've been having some I have problems everywhere, but my back, shoulders, hips, hamstrings, probably the hips, hamstrings, and back are the main issues for me right now, and I'm recovering from a knee injury and still doing a bit of rehab there. So you want to tailor your daily routine to wherever you're having issues. Definitely not a one-size-fits-all approach, but I like to do things that go in the multiple planes of movement. So we do most of our stuff down the middle on this line here, but stuff out to the side like jumping jacks and things are really good, and then things that go in the twisting plane are especially good as well. And the older you get, the more you tend to lose that range of motion in those twisting type fashions. There's also some science to support that you're stronger in the afternoon than you are in the morning. So if you're looking to do strength gains, it's probably better to do that a little bit later in the day anyways. After that workout, I'll have my first proper meal, which right now is usually a smoothie and or a protein shake. Make sure I get in a full serving of protein. At my body weight, I can probably take in like 30-35 grams of protein in a single sitting before it's sort of excessive, and there's diminishing returns on that, of course. I'll also have a shot of extra virgin olive oil. I'll do that 3 times a day, once with each meal. Typically, I'd recommend alternating between standing and sitting, but because of a long-term hamstring issue that I've had, I avoided sitting for a long time because it was painful, and I think that caused more issues in my hip. So now I've got myself a really good chair, as you can see here, and I try to do all my work at the moment sitting because I do enough standing and moving around in between with these exercises and going up and down the stairs of the apartment that I think my leg, my hip, needs the rest that sitting provides. That said, I do try to take frequent breaks whenever I can for just a few minutes. I may do some rice bucket routines, which I try to do once or twice a day because I've also been having some wrist issues for a while. I may walk the dog as he needs it, or just do a little bit of stretching and active movement for a few minutes between meetings or after a longer period of sitting at the desk. I might mix in a little more of that longevity mix at that point, and in the morning I end up being really well hydrated actually, between like the greens and the collagen, which are in water, and then the protein shake, which I often have with water, the fruit from the smoothie, which is really hydrating, and then this longevity mix that I'm working in as well. I get my hydration in like really hard in the morning, and then I kind of taper off through the rest of the day, going back towards getting a good night's sleep. If you're getting up and having to pee twice, how good of a night's sleep can you really get? After another block of work time, I take a break for lunch. Oftentimes I may have a workout on my lunch break here if it's convenient to do so, and especially if I'm going to be doing something right after work where I won't have time to do a workout then. This workout's much more focused on strength and conditioning, and again tailored to what I need for my own personal issues. I'm a climber and a snowboarder, so I'm trying to stay in peak health for my shoulders and hips and knees and elbows and ankles and wrists and everything else. Ends up pretty much being a fingertip to toe kind of regimen that's needed to keep me healthy and moving. After that, it's back to work for another block, again broken up with breaks, maybe a rice bucket routine, maybe walking the dog, maybe some stretching. And then if I didn't do a lunch break workout, I'll do my second workout of the day immediately following work. I find it pretty nice to kind of like bookend my work day with an exercise at the beginning and an exercise at the end, and then just little breaks in between, trying to stay sort of moving around and active as much as possible. The human body is really not meant to be doing just one thing, whether it be sitting or standing or laying. You do any of that too much and it's going to start causing issues. So switching it up frequently and leaning towards movement rather than being stationary is almost always your best bet. Unlike Bryan, who eats pretty much the same thing every single day, I keep dinner really flexible so I can eat it with the fiance, and we're planning to have kids and all that. So that's important to me to keep that sort of normal, if you will, and not just like a medicine like I consider the rest of my food. So dinner will be a little more free form, but I do try to kind of keep track of my calories. For me, it's because I tend to undereat. I know that's not most people's issue, but if it is your issue, I might argue that that's actually worse than overeating, especially if you're active, if you're out there and you're making your body work, but you're not giving it everything it needs to either power the exercise or recover afterwards and build muscle back or build muscle. If that's what you're trying to do, you could really end up screwing yourself bad. In fact, unbeknownst to me over the last few months, I think I've lost a bunch of weight, probably like 10 or 12 pounds, because I haven't been as active due to a bunch of rehab. And then my appetite isn't there as well, so then I'm under eating. And I've been trying to get back to being more active, and it's hard for me to actually eat as much as I really should be. So I'm working hard on that and really just tracking it to make sure I eat enough. That said, I am working towards dinner being the last food that I eat of the day, and hopefully at some point the last time that I drink like liquids as well. Although I haven't really gotten anywhere close to that yet, I still feel like thirsty at night, and so I'm sipping on some tea or something else before bedtime. After dinner, which is eaten ideally as early as possible following work, is what I call free play. So that might be going to the climbing gym or hitting the trampoline park or doing a workout if for some reason I wasn't able to get one in on lunch or immediately following work. Could be going to a movie, could be doing anything, right? This is free play. And with that, we're right back to our wind down routine before bedtime. Setting this up in your phone, if you're an iPhone user, it has a bedtime reminder, and it also changes your phone settings so that it stops giving you notifications, it dims a little bit. It just kind of gets you in the habit or in the mindset of, hey, I should be prepping to go to bed. And once that hits on your phone, like try to just put it away, put it on your side table or wherever it sleeps for the night, get it on the charger early, and then start doing some things that'll help you wind down. Might be reading a book, taking a bath, taking a walk, turning down the lights. Red lights are great if you can swap out some bulbs. I'd love to have a little more like automated something in the future where the lights in the house change at that time and dims down, and you just have these really blatant and consistent markers that start telling your brain it's time to get ready for bed. I'll brush my teeth and do some other stuff that I haven't always been the best about, if I'm being honest. I've been lotioning up because I find my skin is pretty dry here in Texas. And then we're right back to bed and starting the whole thing over again the next day. Probably sounds just a little crazy to be so like structured with a routine each day, but pretty much all throughout my adult life, I've been addicted to something. Nicotine, marijuana, sunflower seeds, rock climbing, like you name it. I can get addicted to just about anything. And over these past 4 or 5 years, I've been consecutively giving up all those things and trying to redirect my addictive tendencies into something that's valuable and productive and actually good for me. And this is my latest and greatest attempt to do just that. I'm certainly going to give myself loads of grace. I don't hold it really to any specific time frames. It's more about the principles than it is about the specifics for me. In future videos, I do plan to go into a lot more detail about what's been working for me in terms of breaking bad habits and forming new ones and just trying to be a healthy and productive person. So if you want to see those or my 30, 60, and 90-day update videos on trying this Bryan Johnson daily habit protocol, hit that sub button to catch them. Thanks for watching.